Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Commissioner Muchanga. It's always inspiring to hear you speak on African issues. As we know, this was a hybrid event, so there have been some people also chiming in from France, from the US, and others. And I just want to read one of the comments that I received. The name is Max Garrett. I think it's in Paris. And he says, "No more talk. Now it's time for action. Implementation, implementation, implementation." Max, we hear you. And then in that regard, I just also want to draw our attention to some of these brochures that you have is out here, because the bank, your bank, is a bank of action, a bank of implementation. So once we started identifying these challenges and issues, we started developing instruments within the bank to have them implemented, to allow the bank to be positioned to implement them. So the first one is capacity development strategy for Africa. So please pick it up and look at it. We worked with ACBF, the Africa Capacity Building Foundation, and we consulted like 200 African institutions and global institutions working on Africa to come up with this strategy. Let's make it happen together. The other one is the strategy for economic governance in Africa, addressing the institutional governance issues which we have just identified as a major challenge. My friend, my brother, Director Abdoulaye Coulibaly, who is handling this work with us, is here, so you can also talk with him to get further details. But let's also look at this and see how we move with it. We've talked about debt. So the bank responded with a multi-dimensional action plan for addressing debt vulnerability in Africa. And that action plan is already in motion in some of our countries that are already in debt distress and others that are highly vulnerable to debt issues on the continent. And one of that action of the multidimensional action plan is establishing a public finance management academy for Africa. So that public finance management academy will help to address the bottlenecks we see in domestic revenue mobilization. My brother from ATAF was sitting here. We worked with them, and we are working with them on that. We are working with IMF, World Bank, and the rest of them to come up with ways of helping build that capacity on our continent to be able to plug the holes in our public finance management systems. We always talk about financial flows, but we always think of the inflows. The financial outflows from this continent, in real terms, is humongous. The figures we have from UNCTAD and others is talking about 86 billion. That's about 3.7% of our GDP being lost every year. But that is still a tip of the iceberg. If we look at the mines, look at agriculture, look at trade misinvoicing, and all the things that is happening on the continent, you will see that Africa can finance its development. If you want to hear more about that, my sister, Vanessa Ushi, who is the director, acting director for Natural Resources Management and Investment Center of the bank, is there, and she can talk to you a lot more about what's happening with our natural resources. Then we've talked about knowledge, STEM, science, technology, and innovation, and so on. The bank has developed, just recently approved by our board of directors, a knowledge management strategy for Africa. So how to really rapidly increase investments in these key sectors, in education, not only to produce technical papers, but to translate those technical papers to productive investments for the continent, is here. And then finally, we take accountability seriously. The bank is an accountable bank. So we have produced, we are working now to produce an African public service delivery index for Africa. We've checked with across the globe, and we don't find a tool that can be used to hold public servants accountable in terms of what you were saying. The bank, African Union, and African citizens holding us as their public servants accountable for the things we do, what we do with their taxpayer money. So how are we delivering on energy? How are we delivering on GDP growth? How are we delivering on water services? How are we delivering on poverty? How are we delivering on most of several key indicators that are there? So my colleague, Dr. Njeri Wabiri, is not here, that's working on it, can give you a little bit further details on this. So our plan is that once we are able to have a standardized, generally accepted index, we can then work with the AU, the peer review mechanism, and so on, to even afford prizes, annual public service delivery index awards, to create incentives, recognize those who are doing well, learn from what they are doing so that we can try to replicate it going forward. And that will be at the continental level, at the regional level, and at the national level as well. So with all these efforts led by our president, President Akinwumi Adesina, and the leadership and collaboration we're having with the African Union and African institutions seated here, my brother here is working with us on the Public Finance Management Academy, and we have started the first training of a cohort of 140 African public servants nominated by yourselves, the ministries of finance, and we'll be working with them not just to have a workshop and say we have trained you. No, we take you through 18-month structured training, just like you're having a postgraduate studies diploma or master's degree on public service, on public finance management across all the cycles on public finance management. And we deploy the skills and competencies of African institutions, CABRI, ATAF, ACBF, AERC, working side by side with the IMF, World Bank, Brookings Institution, and all the institutions, Harvard, and so on, that we can get. Let's all sit at table and craft solutions for Africa's challenges. Because for me, helping Africa come out of poverty is a sustainability imperative for the world. So this is not philanthropy. It's not development aid. It's actually saving our common future. Please just have a look at the slide there, because it has basically marshalling words in terms of how we want to do this study and work. We have challenges. In the middle of difficulties lies opportunities. So where you show me the challenge, I look for the opportunity. This is how innovation functions. So thank you, honorable ministers, reminding us that we need to focus on the positive side. So all these are challenges, but without them, we won't have this transformative opportunity of our lifetime to do something differently. That was from Albert Einstein. Now, the next one is that we cannot use the old map to explore the new world. I'm an economist, but I need to think of my economic tools for solving social problems today. I always sit back and I think, we had Alfred Marshall, John Maynard Keynes, and all these brilliant people who sat down and thought about social challenges in their economy, in their world that they lived in, and created models on how to solve them. Models are just extractions from reality. So they extracted from their reality on how to solve them. So I kept asking myself when I was in undergraduate studies, why do I have to understand their model instead of create mine? Because I'm not living in their world, and their society is not mine. And even if I was living in their society has moved on because everything is dynamic and change is constant. So let's think about applying everything we know to our current circumstances innovatively. Finally, no social problem can be solved or even eradicated without distribution or redistribution of economic, political, and social resources. So we shouldn't hold on to where we are. I am in the African Development Bank Group and I have this position, so you do what I say. I am the minister, so you do what I say. Let us sit together at table, share that power that you have, that resource that you have, that knowledge that you have. Perhaps two is always better than one. Thank you.